this is Dr. Kim from Richgo.
Hello, nice to meet you. This is Kim Gi-won from Richgo.
These days, the construction industry is in serious trouble. Shindonghwa Construction, known for building the 63 building and the housing brand family, has ultimately applied for corporate rehabilitation procedures in court. In today's video, we will discuss the various crises facing the construction industry and share different stories related to them. Yes, surprising.
Yes, that's right. The 63 building is a very symbolic structure. It's a symbolic building, and inside, it's nice. The company that built the 63 building, Shindonghwa Construction, had a crisis in 2019. It's truly a well-built building.
But the mid-sized company that built the 63 building, Shindonghwa Construction, actually faced a crisis back in 2019. Then, again, yes, it seemed like they were recovering, but unfortunately this time they applied for corporate rehabilitation procedures. I think this carries a very significant meaning. What do you think?
So they are roughly ranked around 58th in the industry. So there have been some recent failures among small and medium-sized construction companies in the provinces. But in a way, it's significant that a company like Shindonghwa Construction, which can be considered a large construction firm, has collapsed. The anxiety in the industry is really escalating right now. The amount they couldn't cover isn't even that huge. From the company's perspective, they couldn't cover a 6 billion won promissory note, which is why they had to apply for rehabilitation procedures.
In fact, 6 billion won isn't a huge amount for a mid-sized company.
6 billion won is about the price of a slightly expensive apartment in Gangnam.
So they filled in the gaps and filled in the gaps, but in the end they couldn't cover the 6 billion. I wonder how much they tried to cover up, yet still couldn't manage to fill this gap.
However, as of the end of 2023, Shindonghwa Construction has debts amounting to nearly 800 billion won. The scale of the debt and the debt ratio exceeded 400%.
The debt ratio was high.
So the debt ratio was originally around 350% in 2022, but by the end of 2023, it increased to about 428%, which is nearly an 80% rise. Typically, in the construction industry, we say that when the debt ratio exceeds 200%, it's considered risky. With it increasing to over 400%, they must have been juggling their finances somehow. So, generally speaking, in the construction industry, we say that when the debt ratio exceeds 200%, it's considered risky. And so it's being evaluated like this, and as it increased to over 400%, they must have been juggling their finances somehow. Then, in January of this year, problems arose.
The unfortunate aspect is that, unfortunately, Shindonghwa Construction, having sadly gone bankrupt, is a company that was well known in the industry for its brand called Famille, which was once very popular and highly regarded for its quality and innovation. Then, the scheduled buyers will be directly affected, and various companies associated with this might also face a ripple effect.
Yes, that's right. This information is from a report that was exclusively published on January 9th, which is the date we are filming today. So, due to the bankruptcy crisis of Shindonghwa Construction, the construction of the Famille project at Uijeongbu Station has been halted.
It shows up just like that.
Yes, and it's inevitable that this will spread to other business sites. So, looking at the details, it seems that the wages for the construction workers have already been delayed for several months. So, the workers have actually not been paid for several months now, and the progress rate is said to be around 30%. And it was an apartment scheduled for occupancy in July 2026. About 60% of the units are unsold. So, only 40% of the units were sold, and 60% remained unsold, leaving them in this unsold state. So, Shindonghwa Construction is involved as a contractor or developer in housing sales guarantee projects, including Uijeongbu, Incheon, Pyeongtaek, Goyang, and Dongtan. So, there are a total of 7 places in the metropolitan area. A total of 2899. They say it's about 2899 units. And the guaranteed amount exceeds 1 trillion won. That's a really huge amount.
Right now, it's not just Uijeongbu. Places like Incheon, Pyeongtaek, Goyang, and Dongtan, where Kyonghwa Construction was involved in construction and development, are also affected. I think all the places here are actually in a very tense state right now.
That's right. So there are problems here as well. That's how it came to be. And I think those who have purchased units here are probably really worried.
They do provide guarantees in the fiction, but can we really say it's okay if we can feel a bit reassured about the guarantee? That's right.
That's right. This is a very important point. But originally, the projects that received sales guarantees had their business operators guaranteed for sales. It means that even if there are issues with the guarantee, they will resolve them. So, if the developer goes bankrupt or is unable to complete the construction, HUG will either pay the deposit and interim payments on their behalf or replace the contractor. Finish the construction. However, in this process, the construction period, for example, in Uijeongbu, was supposed to be by next July, but it could be delayed much longer than expected. That's right. That's right. Because the construction company has to be replaced and selected again. And then we also need to consider whether HUG has that guarantee responsibility for this project and whether the guarantee responsibility actually arises for HUG. We need to consider that. So it's not guaranteed to be 100%. And as everyone knows, HUG is also in a very tough situation right now. That's a huge deficit. That's why, in my view, we really need to check whether this falls under HUG's guarantee coverage when looking at the article's content.
This is definitely not something to feel completely at ease about. Of course, I thought I would be able to get the guarantee.
Promises seem fine. Shindonghwa Construction enters court. HUG's guarantee won't apply immediately. They probably did that when they were doing sales. However, it is said that even if Shindonghwa Construction goes into court management, it is difficult to say that HUG's guarantee responsibility will immediately arise. However, if Shindonghwa construction projects are halted over 3 months or progress is significantly slower, HUG might assume guarantee responsibility. That's the current statement. If HUG finds a guarantee incident at a site, they will check if deposits and interim payments can be refunded and plan future actions. In that case, HUG may take on the guarantee responsibility. So right now we're discussing this. And if HUG determines that a guarantee incident has occurred at a project site, they need to investigate whether the deposit and interim payments can be refunded to the buyers and plan for future actions accordingly. So with all these things being considered and dealt with, this is how much is the move-in delayed? It's getting delayed a lot.
It would be a relief if it just ends up being delayed, but I can't help but worry that there will definitely be cases where compensation won't be provided.
That's right.
Now, it's not just the buyers, but there are also many big and small companies that are intertwined with this situation.
That's right. That's right. As I mentioned earlier, the workers at the construction site are already saying that they haven't been paid for some time. But when we undertake a construction project, just think about how many partner companies there are. Especially in the case of Shindonghwa Construction, there are about 700 partner companies. 700 companies. So what does that mean with Shindonghwa Construction going down? All 700 partner companies and small businesses are facing difficulties together. So these are the serious issues we're facing.
It's concerning that as news articles emerge, not only Shindonghwa Construction, but other companies are in emergency. This might lead to similar issues elsewhere. News articles indicate a debt ratio over 200% is risky. I'm worried that this situation might lead to similar issues in other construction companies as well.
So if you look at the related newspaper articles, they say that if the debt ratio exceeds 200%, it's considered quite risky. However, the company with the highest debt ratio is Taehyung Construction. Of course, this is based on the third quarter of last year. Taehyung Construction has a debt ratio of 747%, Kumho Construction is at 640%, Koreal Global is at 559%, then DNI Hala is at 269%, SK Ecoplant is at 251%, and Dongbu Construction is at 249%, and so on in ranking.
These are construction companies, you know.
That's right. If you look here, we have GS Construction, Koreal Construction, Hanshin Engineering, and Lotte Construction. So even the large construction companies are in a situation where their debt ratios are quite high.
Well, we've talked about this in our videos, but why is the construction industry such a crisis? I think there are several reasons for how it got this difficult.
Yes, everyone was caught up in the bubble created by COVID. So, because interest rates are so low and the real estate market is booming, as I've mentioned repeatedly, yes, it's more important to avoid making wrong decisions than to make good decisions. If you think about a car, it has an accelerator and a brake, right? But what happens to a car that only has an accelerator? If a car only has an accelerator, it only has an accelerator, no brake.
No brake what?
There's no brake. So what do you think will happen?
So how do you stop? It's just running. It's just going to keep accelerating.
But everyone was like that. Real estate expert. All these real estate development companies and construction firms kept saying that everything was going up in 2020 and 2021. That's when I heard Kim Ki-won's words and I said we should be careful starting from mid-2020. Be careful. Be careful with your decisions. It can really be dangerous. But at that time, individuals and companies were all getting ruined because of this one decision. Individuals suffer, and if someone goes bankrupt, their family struggles too. Big company collapses. affect workers as well. So it's not just me who gets ruined, my whole family ends up struggling. And when these large companies collapse, it's not just the company that suffers. The workers employed by that company are affected as well. What else? The partner companies all end up struggling too. So I really don't understand why such crucial real estate decisions are made so haphazardly. So when we're safe, it's just like driving a car. When it's safe, you can press the accelerator a bit, but it's risky. If it's risky, you should gently press the brake. But the atmosphere isn't like that. The atmosphere, such that everyone is just stepping on the gas. We're on the highway, so just keep stepping on it. I really don't understand this. Maybe because I have a lot of T-type tendencies, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Because the biggest asset in South Korea is real estate. And individuals and companies have the most real estate assets, right? But is the decision making here just based on the idea that it will keep going up? Is my opinion always right? What? Are you always talking about a supply shortage? If supply shortages continue, why are large construction companies collapsing? Many gaslight others about the real estate market. They focus on a few areas as if the whole market is thriving. Despite government policies in 2023 and 2024, these issues persist. It's becoming a serious problem. Some areas are still talking about the real estate market as if it's thriving, based on just a few specific cases. But the reality is, even with the government implementing special policies in 2023 and 2024 to support it, these issues are still happening. And it would be great if we could at least prevent all of this, but now it's really becoming a serious problem. Because South Korea is already in a tough situation, the external factor of concerns about a recession in the US is likely to become more apparent in the second half of 2025. Then there will be a tremendous shock, and truly unimaginable and dangerous things could happen. Right now,
The situation isn't good right now, but as you mentioned, everyone jumped in thinking that things would keep going up, like we're all on the highway. On top of that, construction costs have gone up, and the economy is tough. So I think all these factors are piling up one after another.
yes, that's right. Right now, the construction industry is really struggling, and there's no way around it. Because right now, the construction industry is suffering from multiple hardships. And as you can see, there are still so many unsold properties. The number of unsold properties is not decreasing. Next, the ratio of non-performing loans in real estate project financing is also continuing to rise. And then, construction cost index keeps going up, so the costs keep going up. But there are a lot of unsold apartments, and the number of non-performing loans is increasing. If sales were going well, and orders were coming in like crazy, at least we could manage to juggle things around a bit. But if you look at the construction order data, how does it look right now? Construction orders have been continuously decreasing since the peak in 2022. Why? Because the economy isn't doing well. So what is it? So the supply will start to decrease, not in 2025, but from 2026. And especially where the economy is struggling in the regions. This is natural. Usually, real estate market takes a big hit. So, starting 3 years from now, the supply will decrease. This is natural logic. But saying that real estate prices are going up just because there's a shortage in supply is really just trying to force a narrative of increase. No matter what, it's like they're just trying to fit things together to justify the rise. So I really feel that these heartbreaking situations keep happening, and it seems like there will be even more in the future. I wonder how long these things will keep occurring and how long the real estate prices will keep rising. It's just so unfortunate, and I can't help but think, are we just going to keep gaslighting ourselves about this? I really think it's so unfortunate that we're just going to keep gaslighting ourselves about this. Because most people just take whatever sounds plausible at face value and believe it. However, behind the scenes, countless people are affected by the auction items flooding the market and the collapsing construction companies. This is a clear fact, and it's still not over. So, everyone, you really need to tighten your belts right now. You really need to be careful.
It's clear that the construction market is not doing well, and as briefly mentioned, I've heard that around 30 construction companies have gone bankrupt this year. However, since most of them are construction companies based in the provinces, I can't help but think that the situation is even more critical in those areas. What do you think, sir, about the situation in the provinces? But do you think there's hope for the real estate market to recover in the future? I'm curious about that.
Absolutely. The big turnaround in the provinces is going to start from 2025. Because a lot of construction companies in the provinces have really gone bankrupt. So, where is there really no supply? It's the provinces.
Can you really think that way?
No, what I mean is that when you look at the actual data, many experts only consider the supply figures for confirmed move-ins, which makes it seem like the supply is small. But if you Also look at the data for unconfirmed move-ins. So the metropolitan area will have a small supply only until 2026, and then it will start to increase again from 2027. But in the provinces, most areas are still quite small, but the prices have already dropped a lot. So the prices have dropped a lot, making them reasonable enough to attract demand, but there hasn't been any supply for several years. This is going to bring about a significant turnaround in the rise. And what about the provinces? Construction costs. Construction costs keep going up, right? Are construction costs in the provinces cheaper than in Seoul? It's the same. There's really no difference. What's the difference? It's the difference in land prices. That's why it's the same for the provinces. There's something called cost price. There is a cost price for building an apartment in the provinces. So I believe that a major turnaround in the provinces will happen starting this year. I know that many people are struggling and finding it tough in the provincial real estate market, but I encourage you to hang in there starting this year. Especially from next year, I think around the middle of the year, the provincial real estate market will really start to heat up.
Construction areas will also come.
That's right. The construction war economy in the provinces. Let me share something hopeful with you. Do you know when a crisis comes? A crisis comes after the cheers. Right, in 2020, 2021, how many people cheered? And then 22, 23, 24, 25, we're still facing a crisis, right? And the peak of this crisis is likely to be at the end of 2025 or in the first half of 2026. So when does the opportunity come? Opportunities arise right at the peak of a crisis when everyone is struggling and bad news reaches its height. That's when opportunities truly begin. So for those of you in the construction industry who are struggling right now, hang in there. I'm really keeping an eye on all the data. In the big picture, I really believe that I've gotten most of it right based on the data. And starting next year, the provincial real estate market is going to get much better. So hang in there and keep fighting. It would be great if you could do that.
Hearing your hopeful predictions. The end makes me feel good too.
I'm really going to show you a different Kim Ki-hyun starting at the end of this year. Now let's stop talking about declines and how dangerous things are. I'm going to talk a lot about opportunities. But the unfortunate thing is that when I say that, it usually means the market is really not doing well. But there's nothing we can do about it. Big bull markets always emerge during tough times when everyone is struggling. So if you can just hold on a little longer, opportunities will come. So I could even start calling this the Kim Kyung's rise season. Starting at the end of this year.
Understood. Yes. As we can see from the case of Shindonghwa Construction, the crisis currently facing the construction industry is indeed quite serious. As you mentioned, if we can just overcome that crisis well, I believe the initial chance to turn it into an opportunity will definitely come. If you found today's video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. Thank you.